I never expected a simple text message to destroy my marriage. But there it was, lighting up my husband's phone at 2 a.m. while he slept soundly beside me. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. My name is Quinn, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. Sure, Tyler and I had been struggling with fertility issues for the past year, but we were solid. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I stared at his phone, my hand trembling as I read the message again. The blue light illuminated my face in our dark bedroom, and I could hear Tyler's steady breathing. Completely unaware that our world was about to implode. "Hey, babe," I whispered, gently shaking his shoulder. "Tyler." He stirred, rolling over with a grunt. "What's wrong?" I held up his phone, screen facing him. "Who's sending you messages at this hour?" The change in his expression was subtle but unmistakable, a flash of panic quickly masked by confusion. "Must be work," he mumbled, snatching the phone from my hand. "You know how those West Coast clients are. Work messages don't usually mention your hands, Tyler." He sat up then, suddenly wide awake. The moonlight streaming through our bedroom window cast shadows across his face, making him look like a stranger. "You're reading my private messages now." "It lit up while I was getting water," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Are you having an affair?" Tyler laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Don't be ridiculous, Quinn. You're exhausted from all these fertility treatments. You're not thinking straight." The casual way he dismissed my concerns made something snap inside me. "Don't gaslight me," I said, getting out of bed. "Just tell me the truth." "There's nothing to tell," he insisted, running his hands through his hair, a nervous tic I'd noticed over our 8 years together. "Come back to bed. We'll talk about this in the morning when you're less emotional." I grabbed my pillow and headed for the door. "You know what's funny?" I turned back to look at him. "I didn't even mention the fertility treatments. You brought those up all on your own." As I closed the bedroom door behind me, I heard him cursing under his breath. Standing in our hallway, surrounded by photos of our supposedly happy life together, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story, it was just the beginning. The morning after discovering the text message, I found myself at my mother's house, picking at a slice of banana bread while she rattled on about her church group. I hadn't planned on coming here, but after spending the night on our living room couch, I needed somewhere to go that wasn't home. "Quinn, honey, you're barely touching your food," Mom said, reaching across the kitchen table to feel my forehead. "Are you feeling all right? You look pale." "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired." I forced a smile, knowing she'd see right through it. She always did. "Is it the fertility treatments?" Because I was reading about this specialist in. "Mom, please." My voice cracked slightly. "Can we not talk about babies right now?" She sat back, studying me with that look all mothers perfect, the one that makes you feel like you're 5 years old again. "What's really going on? And don't tell me nothing because you showed up at 8 in the morning on a Tuesday when you should be at work." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Tyler's face lit up my screen. I declined the call. "Trouble in paradise?" Mom asked, her tone shifting from concern to alert. "Tyler's been." I paused, the words stuck in my throat. Saying it out loud would make it real. "I think he's seeing someone else." Mom's face hardened. "What makes you think that?" As I explained about the text message, she got up and started aggressively washing dishes, her go-to stress response. "Have you considered that maybe you're being paranoid? All this pressure to conceive can strain a marriage." "Mom, I know what I saw." She turned around, soap suds dripping from her hands. "Well, what are you going to do about it? You can't just give up on your marriage. Your father and I went through rough patches. This isn't a rough patch, I interrupted. This is different. Different how? Marriage takes work, Quinn. You can't expect. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email notification. Your appointment with Dr. Stevens is confirmed for Thursday at 2 p.m. The fertility clinic. I'd completely forgotten. I have to go, I said, standing up abruptly. Thanks for the bread. Quinn, Mom called after me as I headed for the door. Whatever's happening, just remember, you're stronger than you think. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. That's what I'm afraid of, I whispered, more to myself than her. Because if I was really as strong as she thought, I might just burn my entire life to the ground to find out the truth. I found the hotel receipt while doing laundry. It was crumpled in Tyler's jacket pocket, the Riverside Hotel, dated 3 days ago. My hands shook as I smoothed out the paper, remembering how he told me he was working late that night. I shouldn't have done what I did next, but something inside me had snapped. I called the hotel. Hi, I'm trying to confirm a reservation for next week, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My husband, Tyler Morgan, stayed there recently and loved it. Oh yes, Mr. Morgan, the receptionist replied cheerfully. Will you be joining him this time? He usually books a single room. Usually. The word hit me like a slap. I hung up and grabbed my car keys. Tyler was supposed to be at work, but his location sharing showed him at Crimson, our favorite coffee shop. The word felt bitter now. The drive there was a blur. I parked across the street, my heart pounding as I scanned the outdoor seating area. That's when I saw them. Tyler was sitting at our usual table, but he wasn't alone. Emily Ross, my high school friend who'd moved back to town last year, was with him. Her hand rested on his arm as she laughed at something he'd said. I watched as Tyler reached across the table and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the same gesture he'd done countless times with me. Emily leaned into his touch, and suddenly 8 years of marriage crystallized into something ugly and false. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler, working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I got out of the car, my legs carrying me toward them before I could think better of it. Emily saw me first. The color drained from her face. Quinn. Tyler jumped up, knocking over his coffee. What are you? This isn't. Isn't what, Tyler? My voice was eerily calm. Isn't exactly what it looks like. Emily stood up, smoothing her dress. Quinn, we can explain. You can explain. I turned to her, feeling something break loose inside me. Explain what? How long you've been sleeping with my husband? Or how you sat through dinner at my house last month, talking about fertility treatments while knowing about this. I never meant, Emily started. To get caught. I finished for her. Save it. You can have him. I turned to leave, but Tyler grabbed my arm. Quinn, please. Let's talk about this. I yanked my arm away. You know what's funny? I was so worried about not being able to give you a baby. Turns out you've been too busy making a fool of me to care. As I walked away, I heard Emily call my name. But I kept going, my mind already racing with what would come next. Because this was just the beginning. I ended up at a support group for people dealing with infidelity. Not because I wanted to be there, but because my therapist insisted I needed to process my emotions in a healthy environment. Whatever that meant. The community center basement smelled like old coffee and broken dreams. I sat in the back, half listening to others share their stories, until a man named Ethan spoke. Something about his words caught my attention. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, he said, his voice steady but raw. It was realizing how many memories I had to rewrite. Every happy moment became a question mark. I felt that in my bones. Earlier that day, I'd found our wedding album while packing my things. Tyler and Emily had been dancing in one of the photos, both laughing at some forgotten joke. Now I wondered if that's when it started. After the meeting, Ethan approached me. "First time here. That obvious. You had that I'd rather be anywhere else look." He smiled, but it was kind, not pitying. "Coffee?" We ended up at a diner down the street. Not Crimson, I couldn't go there anymore. "So," Ethan said, stirring his coffee, "how fresh is your wound?" 3 days since I caught them. 8 years of marriage down the drain. Any kids? No. We've been trying, but... I stopped, something clicking in my mind. We've been trying for over a year. All those treatments, the disappointments, and he's been... My hand shook so hard I spilled coffee on the table. Ethan quietly passed me napkins. "The fertility clinic called yesterday," I continued, dabbing at the spill. "They want both of us to come in for final results. Tyler doesn't know yet. Are you going to tell him?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Can we talk? Please. There's more you need to know." "More I need to know," I read aloud, laughing without humor. "Like what?" "That they're in love. That they're sorry." Ethan leaned forward. "You know what helped me? Realizing that closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you." "What if I don't want closure?" I met his eyes. "What if I want justice?" "Those aren't mutually exclusive," he said, pulling out a business card. "I'm actually a psychologist. If you ever need to talk." I took the card, noticing his wedding ring was missing but had left a pale band on his finger. "Does it ever stop hurting?" "No," he said honestly. "But one day, you'll realize it's not the first thing you think about in the morning anymore. That's when you know you're healing." I looked at Emily's text again, then at the fertility clinic appointment reminder. Maybe it was time to rewrite my own story, not as a victim, but as someone who refused to be fooled twice. The fertility clinic was eerily quiet when Dr. Stevens called me into her office. I'd come alone, having forgotten to tell Tyler about the appointment. My hands were sweating as I sat down, already knowing this conversation would change everything. "Mrs. Morgan," she started, then corrected herself. "Quinn. I have your results." I nodded, bracing myself. "Your tests came back normal." She paused, shuffling through papers. "However, Tyler's results show severe oligospermia. In layman's terms, his sperm count is extremely low. Conception would be nearly impossible without medical intervention." The room tilted slightly. "How long has this been an issue?" "Based on these numbers?" "Years." "It's likely a congenital condition." "Years." The word echoed in my head as memories flooded back, Tyler blaming my stress levels for our failure to conceive. Suggesting I needed to relax more, all while knowing he was the reason. My phone buzzed, another message from Emily. "Please meet me. I'm pregnant." The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. I must have made a sound because Dr. Stevens looked concerned. "Quinn. Are you all right? Can I get a copy of these results?" Later that evening, I sat in my car outside Ethan's office, staring at the test results and Emily's message. He'd given me his private number, but I hadn't planned to use it so soon. Still, I needed someone who could think clearly right now. "You're sure about the timing?" Ethan asked after I explained everything. We were sitting in his office, long after his last patient had left. Emily's 12 weeks along, according to her message. Tyler and I were still trying then. He knew he couldn't. I stopped, at the betrayal burning fresh. What are you thinking of doing? I pulled out my phone, showing him Emily's message thread. She wants to meet tomorrow. Probably to confess, maybe beg for forgiveness. She doesn't know I have these test results. And Tyler. He's been leaving voicemails, trying to explain. Says he can change. I laughed bitterly. Funny how men only want to change after they're caught. Ethan leaned forward. Be careful, Quinn. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but... This isn't about revenge, I interrupted. This is about truth. They've been watching me blame myself, take hormones, schedule appointments. All while knowing. I stood up, suddenly energized. Tomorrow, they'll both learn what it feels like to have their carefully constructed lies fall apart. Just remember, Ethan called as I reached the door, whatever you do next, do it for yourself, not to hurt them. I turned back, managing a small smile. Don't worry. I've spent enough time being their victim. Tomorrow, I become the author of my own story. I chose Crimson for our final confrontation. It felt fitting, the place where I'd caught them would be where their lies finally unraveled. Emily was already there when I arrived, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, looking smaller than I remembered. Tyler showed up 5 minutes later, freezing when he saw us both. Quinn. What are you? Sit down, Tyler. My voice was steady, surprising even me. We're going to have a conversation about fertility. Emily's face went pale. Quinn, I can explain. The pregnancy. I pulled out the test results, placing them on the table. Or how about Tyler's condition? The one that makes it impossible for him to father children. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler reached for the papers with trembling hands. 12 weeks, I continued, watching Emily. That's what you said in your message, right? Funny timing, considering Tyler and I were still trying then. Still taking medications. Still going to appointments. I didn't. Tyler started. Didn't what? Didn't know you were sterile. Or didn't care how many hormones I pumped into my body while you were sleeping with my friend. Emily burst into tears, drawing looks from nearby tables. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No. I leaned forward. How was it supposed to happen? Were you going to wait until after I blamed myself for another failed round of treatments? Or maybe after I spent another $1,000 on fertility drugs? The baby. Tyler's voice cracked. It's not. Not yours. I finished. Congratulations, Emily. You're having someone else's baby while sleeping with my infertile husband. That must be quite a conversation starter at parties. Emily stood up abruptly, knocking over her coffee. I need to go. Running away again. I called after her. Like you did in high school when you slept with my prom date. She stopped, shoulders shaking. Tyler looked between us, realization dawning on his face. This isn't about the affair, is it? He asked quietly. No, Tyler. It's about patterns. Emily takes what isn't hers. You lie to feel better about yourself. And I stood up, gathering my things. I'm done being the person you both use to feel better about yourselves. Quinn, please, Tyler reached for my hand. We can fix this. I pulled away, feeling strangely light. That's the thing, Tyler. I don't want to fix it anymore. I want to fix me. As I walked out of Crimson, I heard Emily crying and Tyler calling my name. But for the first time since this all began, I didn't look back. Sometimes rock bottom isn't where you lose everything, it's where you find yourself. A week after the confrontation at Crimson, Emily showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked terrible, mascara streaked, hair unwashed. Tyler had left her, she said. The baby wasn't his after all. I need your help, Quinn, she pleaded from my doorway. Tyler won't return my calls. I thought if you talked to him. You want me to help you get my husband back. The absurdity of it made me laugh. The same husband you helped destroy our marriage with. You don't understand. I'm alone, Anne. I understand perfectly. I stepped closer, forcing her to back up. You're scared. Just like in high school when you slept with Jason before prom. Just like now with Tyler. You see something stable and happy, and you have to break it. Her face crumpled. That's not fair. I loved Tyler. No, you loved the idea of him. The perfect husband, the perfect life. My life. I felt strangely calm. But here's what you never understood, Emily. You can't steal happiness. It doesn't work like that. What am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem anymore. She grabbed my arm as I tried to close the door. Please, Quinn. I'm pregnant and alone. You need to grow up, I cut her off. You need to stop expecting other people to fix your mistakes. And you need to leave. I'll tell Tyler you knew about his infertility, she threatened, desperation making her voice sharp. That you trapped him in a marriage knowing he couldn't have children. I smiled, pulling out my phone. You mean these test results? Dated 2 weeks ago. I showed her the screen. The same results I already showed both of you at Crimson. Try again, Emily. She slumped against the wall, finally breaking down completely. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry for everything. I know you are. I felt the last of my anger dissolving, replaced by something like pity. But being sorry doesn't fix anything. You need to fix yourself. As I watched her walk away, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, support group tonight. Could use a friendly face. I looked at Emily's retreating figure, then at the message. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about hurting others, it's about healing yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Emily needed to learn too. On my way, I texted back. It was time to write a new chapter, one where I wasn't anyone's victim or savior. Just myself, finally free. 6 months after everything fell apart, I found myself back at Crimson. Not because I was haunted by memories, but because they made the best vanilla lattes in town. As I waited for my order, I saw Emily through the window, her baby bump now visible. Our eyes met briefly before she hurried past. That looked uncomfortable, Ethan said, appearing beside me with 2 coffee cups. You okay? Surprisingly, yes. I accepted my drink. Did I tell you she sent me a letter last week? The one you haven't opened yet. I pulled the crumpled envelope from my bag. I keep thinking about what she could possibly say that would matter now. Maybe it's not about what matters to you anymore, Ethan suggested. Leading us to a table, not the one where I'd confronted Tyler and Emily months ago, but close enough to see it. I finally opened the letter, reading it silently while Ethan waited. Emily's words were messy, desperate, apologies, explanations, a plea for forgiveness. But it was the last line that caught me. I never understood what happiness was until I lost everything trying to steal someone else's. Well? Ethan asked as I folded the letter. She's learning. Maybe we all are. I tucked the letter away. Tyler called yesterday. The divorce papers are ready. How do you feel about that? I looked around the coffee shop, remembering how I'd once thought this place was ruined for me. You know what's funny? I spent so much time planning the perfect revenge, thinking it would fix everything. But the best revenge turned out to be letting go. Ethan reached across the table, his hand finding mine. Speaking of letting go. Dinner tonight. Dr. Clark, are you asking me out on a proper date? Depends. Are you ready for one? I thought about the past 6 months, the therapy sessions, the support group, the slow process of rebuilding myself. I think I am. But fair warning, I come with some baggage. Good thing I'm a professional baggage handler, he smiled, squeezing my hand. As we left Crimson together, I saw my reflection in the window, smiling, stronger, scarred but healing. I thought about Emily's letter, about Tyler's infertility, about all the ways life doesn't turn out how we plan. Sometimes the family you lose makes way for the family you choose. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best beginnings. And sometimes, just sometimes, the greatest act of revenge is choosing to be happy anyway. I squeezed Ethan's hand back, ready to write a new story, one where I wasn't defined by what I'd lost, but by what I'd found along the way.
The mahogany conference table stretched before me like a battlefield. On one side sat my family, Mom, Dad, and my younger sister Claire, all dressed in expensive suits that screamed old money. On the other side, I sat alone in my simple black blazer from Target, feeling every bit the outsider they'd always treated me as. Just sign the papers, Margaret, Dad said, sliding the stack of documents across the polished surface. It's for the best. Claire has the business degree. She knows how to run grandfather's company. I stared at the inheritance transfer papers, my grandfather's final gift to me, 51% controlling stake in Montgomery Technologies, worth over $200 million. He passed away 3 months ago, and his will had shocked everyone by naming me, not Claire, as his successor. I earned my engineering degree while working full-time. I reminded them quietly, I understand the technical side of our products better than anyone. Mom's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. Please, Margaret, working as a waitress and taking online classes hardly compares to Claire's MBA from Harvard. You're embarrassing yourself. Claire smirked, adjusted her Cartier watch. Don't worry, sis. You can keep your job in R&D. Someone needs to do the grunt work. 10 years of their constant belittling and favoritism flashed through my mind. Claire getting sent to private schools while I attended public. Family vacations I wasn't invited to because I was too busy working. The way they'd refused to help with my college expenses, forcing me to work multiple jobs while Claire got a free ride. But grandfather had seen something in me that they didn't. During his final months, we'd spent hours discussing his vision for the company's future. You have the heart of an innovator, Margaret, he told me. Claire sees dollar signs. You see possibilities. Now they wanted me to throw away his faith in me, sign over my birthright to the sister who'd never worked a day in her life. If you sign now, we'll give you a generous severance package, Dad added. Enough to start fresh somewhere else. It's more than fair. I touched the small key pendant hanging around my neck, grandfather's last gift to me. What about the new CEO interview? Shouldn't we wait until... The board already approved, Claire, Mom interrupted. This is just a formality. Sign the papers, Margaret. Don't make this difficult. I reached for the pen, saw the triumph in Claire's eyes. Then I remembered grandfather's words. When the time comes, trust your instincts. You're stronger than you know. No, I said softly. Excuse me? Dad's face darkened. I said no. I stood up, gathering my courage. I'm not signing anything. Grandfather chose me for a reason. Claire's perfectly painted lips curled into a sneer. You really think you can run this company? You'll drive it into the ground within months. Face it, Margaret, you're not qualified. You're not good enough. You never have been. That's enough. A commanding voice rang out from the doorway. We all turned to see James Morrison, grandfather's longtime attorney, entering with a distinguished-looking woman in an impeccable suit. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Catherine Chen, CEO of Chen Tech Industries and your grandfather's chosen mentor for the new CEO of Montgomery Technologies. My family's faces went pale as Catherine strode forward, hand extended, toward me. Margaret, she smiled warmly. Your grandfather told me so much about you. I've been reviewing your product development proposals. Brilliant work. I look forward to helping you take this company into the future. "This is absurd," Dad sputtered. "She can't possibly." "Actually," Mr. Morrison interrupted, "she can and she will. Your father left very specific instructions." He pulled out another document, including this USB drive, which he asked me to play for everyone once the attempted forced inheritance transfer was complete. My heart stopped. Grandfather had known. He'd known exactly what they would try to do. The conference room screen flickered to life, and there he was, my beloved grandfather, looking frail but determined in his hospital bed. "If you're watching this," he began, "then everything has happened exactly as I predicted. Margaret, my dear girl, I know they tried to bully you into giving up your inheritance. They never understood that I chose you not because of your degrees or credentials, but because of your character." Tears filled my eyes as he continued, "To my son and his wife, I've watched with growing disappointment as you favored Claire and dismissed Margaret's potential. You thought an MBA mattered more than determination, more than integrity. You were wrong. And Claire," his voice hardened, "I've seen how you treat the employees, how you view this company as your personal ATM. That ends now. Margaret will be CEO, with Catherine's guidance. If any of you try to interfere," he smiled sadly, "well, there are other documents in that safety deposit box that I'm sure you'd rather not have made public." The screen went dark. The silence in the room was deafening. "This is just the beginning," Mr. Morrison said calmly. "There's much more your father left for you, Margaret. Shall we discuss the rest privately?" I looked at my family's shocked faces, Mom's theatrical near faint, Dad's purple rage, Claire's cold fury, and felt nothing but relief. A decade of their manipulation and emotional abuse was ending. "Yes," I said, standing taller. "I believe we shall." As I followed Mr. Morrison and Catherine out, I touched the key pendant again. Grandfather had given me more than just a company. He'd given me the strength to stand up to them at last. And something told me this was just the beginning of my story. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of revelations. In the private meeting with Mr. Morrison and Catherine, I discovered just how thoroughly Grandfather had planned everything. "Your grandfather left you more than just the company," Mr. Morrison explained, opening his briefcase. "The key you're wearing, it opens a special safety deposit box at First National Bank. Inside that box, I found decades of evidence. Documents showing how my parents had systematically embezzled company funds, emails revealing Claire's attempts to sell proprietary technology to competitors, and most shockingly, proof that they tried to have Grandfather declared mentally incompetent when he first suggested making me his successor. They never knew I kept records of everything," Grandfather's voice explained in another video. "I wanted to give them a chance to change, to recognize your worth on their own. But they never did." Catherine Chen proved to be exactly the mentor I needed. A self-made billionaire who'd started as an engineer herself, she understood both the technical and business sides of running a technology company. "Your grandfather reached out to me 6 months ago," she told me over coffee in her office. "He said he'd found a kindred spirit in you, someone who saw technology as a way to improve lives, not just make money." Under her guidance, I threw myself into learning every aspect of the business. The board members who'd known Grandfather welcomed me warmly, sharing stories of how he'd built the company from nothing. Even more surprisingly, many employees came forward with their own stories of how Claire and my parents had mistreated them. "Your sister tried to fire me because I wouldn't fudge the numbers for her," our CFO confided. "Your grandfather stopped her. He always protected us from their worst impulses. But my family wasn't going down without a fight. They hired lawyers, tried to contest the will, even attempted to spread rumors about my competency. Their final desperate move came during my first board meeting as CEO. I stood at the podium, preparing to present my vision for the company's future, when the doors burst open. My parents and Claire stormed in, followed by a man I'd never seen before. "This is Dr. Phillips," Dad announced triumphantly. "He's prepared to testify that Father was mentally incompetent when he changed his will. We have documentation." "Actually," Catherine interrupted smoothly, "we have something more interesting." She nodded to Mr. Morrison, who started playing a video on the conference room screen. There was Grandfather, looking healthy and sharp, dated just 2 weeks before his death. He was speaking with Dr. Phillips himself. "So you want me to declare you incompetent?" Grandfather's voice was calm, amused even. "And my son is paying you how much for this false diagnosis?" Dr. Phillips on the screen shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Montgomery, Don't worry, grandfather continued. I'm recording this conversation for my granddaughter Margaret. When she becomes CEO, she'll know exactly who to trust and who tried to betray her. The current Dr. Phillips turned pale, backing away from my parents. I need to leave. Oh, stay, Catherine smiled coldly. The SEC investigators would love to talk to you about medical fraud. I watched my parents and Claire deflate as they realized they'd lost everything, not just the company, but their reputations, their positions, their carefully maintained facade of respectability. You can't do this to us, Mom wailed. We're family? Family? I finally spoke, my voice steady. Family doesn't try to destroy each other. Family doesn't spend years tearing someone down. Grandfather showed me what real family means, supporting each other, believing in each other, building each other up. I touched the key pendant at my neck, drawing strength from it. You have two choices: resign quietly from all company positions, sign the non-disclosure agreements Mr. Morrison has prepared, and walk away with your personal assets intact. Or, Clara whispered, her arrogance finally cracking, or we release everything. Every document, every email, every recording. I'm sure the press would love to hear how the great Montgomery family tried to defraud their own father and daughter. They signed the papers within the hour. 6 months later, Montgomery Technologies was thriving. Our new line of medical devices, a project I developed in secret during my years in R&D, was revolutionizing patient care. The stock price had doubled. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. I kept grandfather's old office exactly as it was, hiding just one thing: a framed photo of us from my engineering graduation, the ceremony he'd attended alone while my parents were on vacation with Claire. You see possibilities, he told me that day. Now, sitting at his desk, my desk, I finally understood. He'd seen the possibility in me when no one else did, and he'd given me the tools to prove them all wrong. Catherine stopped by one evening as I was working late. Your grandfather would be proud, she said, looking around the office. You've exceeded even his expectations. I smiled, touching the key that still hung around my neck. I had good teachers. And your family? She asked carefully. Any word? I heard they moved abroad. Claire's trust fund will keep them comfortable but not extravagant. It's enough. And it was enough. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something better: self-respect, purpose, and the knowledge that I'd proven myself not through cruelty or revenge, but through hard work and integrity. Just like grandfather taught me. That night, driving home in my sensible hybrid, some habits die hard. I passed the diner where I'd worked during college. On impulse, I stopped in. Sally, my old manager, was still there, greeting customers with the same warm smile. Margaret Montgomery, she exclaimed, hugging me. I saw you in the business journal, CEO of Montgomery Technologies. Thanks to people like you, I told her sincerely. You gave me shifts that worked with my class schedule, covered for me during finals. I wouldn't be here without help like that. An idea struck me. 2 weeks later, Montgomery Technologies launched a new scholarship program for working students pursuing STEM degrees. We called it the Rose Montgomery Memorial Scholarship, after my grandmother who'd always believed in education. The first recipient, Sally's daughter, who dreamed of becoming an engineer. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, helping others, and proving that success doesn't require stepping on people. It requires lifting them up. Every morning, I wake up grateful, not for the money or the power, but for the chance to make a difference. The key around my neck reminds me of where I came from and where I'm going. I am Margaret Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Technologies, and my grandfather was right. I see possibilities. Hi, I'm Rachel Morgan, and this is the story of how my sister learned that success isn't always visible from the outside. While she climbed the corporate ladder in Manhattan, I was quietly building an empire from my classroom, proving that sometimes the biggest victories come from staying true to yourself. I always loved that Victorian mansion on Maple Drive. Even as kids, Emma and I would bike past it after school, dreaming about living there someday. I'll buy it when I'm rich and successful, Emma would declare, while I simply smiled and took photos for my vision board. That house, with its wraparound porch and intricate woodwork, represented everything we hoped to achieve. Our paths diverged after high school. Emma went to an elite business school, determined to conquer Wall Street. I chose to become a high school math teacher, following our mother's footsteps. You're wasting your potential, Emma would say during her rare visits home. Teaching, really? With your math skills? What Emma never understood was that I was using those math skills, just not in the way she expected. While she was pulling all-nighters at investment banks, I was developing an algorithm for predicting real estate market trends. During summer breaks, while she networked at Hampton parties, I was quietly buying and flipping properties in emerging neighborhoods. Mom knew my secret. She'd helped me incorporate my first investment company, Morgan Educational Properties, a name that made everyone assume I was running after-school programs. Some people need to show off their success, she'd say, helping me analyze market data. Others need to keep it quiet to stay successful. Within 10 years, my little side project had grown into a real estate portfolio worth over $100 million. I managed everything through shell corporations, trusts, and clever legal structures that kept my name out of public records. To the world, I remained Miss Morgan, the dedicated math teacher who drove a modest Honda and lived in a cozy bungalow. Emma's success was more visible. Vice president at 32, Manhattan penthouse, designer wardrobe. She became everything she dreamed of being. With each achievement, her disdain for my small life grew stronger. When are you going to do something with your life? She asked at family gatherings. You can't grade papers forever. Then came the day that changed everything. Mom's sudden passing from a heart attack. The loss devastated us both, but we grieved differently. I threw myself into teaching, finding solace in my students' energy. Emma threw herself into acquiring the Victorian mansion on Maple Drive, which had recently come on the market. At Mom's funeral reception, held in our childhood home, Emma couldn't resist making an announcement. Standing in front of our gathered family and friends, champagne flute in hand, she smiled her perfect corporate smile. Mom always taught us to chase our dreams, she began, her voice carrying across the hushed living room. And I'm proud to announce that I've just made an offer on the Victorian mansion on Maple Drive. You remember Rachel? The one we used to dream about as kids? I nodded, sipping my water quietly. Of course, I'll be renovating it completely, she continued. Maybe I'll even let you house sit sometimes, sis. Since we both know you'll never afford it on a teacher's salary. The room filled with uncomfortable chuckles. Our Aunt Patricia patted my hand sympathetically, while our cousins avoided eye contact. Emma basked in the attention, already describing her renovation plans. What she didn't know was that I purchased that house 3 years ago through one of my corporations. I've been quietly restoring it, learning its history, preserving its character. Mom had helped me research the original blueprints. It was one of our last projects together. I stayed silent through Emma's speech, through her detailed descriptions of how she'd modernize the historic woodwork, through her thinly veiled jabs at my career choices. But when she mentioned tearing out the library, Mom's favorite room in any house, something inside me shifted. That evening, after the guests had left, I found myself in Mom's study, staring at her desk. In her will, she'd left instructions about revealing certain documents a week after her funeral. Among them was the true ownership deed to the Victorian mansion, along with a letter explaining exactly who had become the successful businesswoman she always hoped we'd both be. As I sat in Mom's chair, running my fingers over the envelope that would change everything, I thought about all the years of condescension, of being underestimated, of quietly building something meaningful while my sister chased external validation. Tomorrow, the family would gather for the reading of Mom's will. Tomorrow, Emma would learn that her unsuccessful little sister owned not just her dream house, but half the commercial real estate in our growing town. But tonight I had some calls to make. After all, Emma's offer on my house would need to be formally rejected. The next morning, we gathered in Mr. Peterson's law office. He'd been our family's attorney for 30 years, and I could see the subtle smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he prepared to read Mom's will. Emma sat beside me, scrolling through design magazines on her tablet, occasionally showing me pictures of how she planned to modernize my house. Now, Mr. Peterson began, adjusting his reading glasses. Before we proceed with the standard provisions, Sarah left specific instructions about revealing certain documents first. He pulled out a thick manila envelope. These are to be discussed before any other aspects of the will. Emma finally looked up from her tablet. Documents? What documents? Mr. Peterson removed several folders from the envelope. The first item is regarding the Victorian mansion at 1847 Maple Drive. Oh. Emma straightened, smoothing her designer suit. Perfect timing. I just made an offer yesterday. Yes. Mr. Peterson nodded. About that offer. He slid a document across the table. This is the current deed to the property, along with its ownership history for the past 3 years. Emma grabbed the paper eagerly, then froze. Her perfectly manicured fingers tightened on the document as she read it once, twice, 3 times. This must be a mistake. No mistake, Mr. Peterson said quietly. The property has been owned by Morgan Educational Properties since 2020. Along with, I might add, approximately 60% of the commercial real estate in the downtown area. Emma's head snapped up. Morgan Educational, Rachel? Her voice cracked on my name. This is some kind of joke, right? I took out my phone and pulled up the Morgan Properties portfolio app I developed. No joke, Emma. Here's the current portfolio overview. I slid the phone across the table. Mom helped me set up the company 15 years ago. She was my silent partner and chief advisor. Emma stared at the screen, her face draining of color as she scrolled through property after property. The historic theater downtown. The new tech startup hub. The luxury apartment complex by the river. All mine. But you're a teacher, she whispered. Yes, I am. I smiled, thinking of my students. And I'm also a successful real estate investor. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Mrs. Morgan left a letter explaining everything. Mr. Peterson interjected, pulling out an envelope in Mom's familiar handwriting. She asked that I read it aloud. My dearest daughters, if you're hearing this, then it's time for the truth to come out. Emma, your drive and ambition have taken you far in the corporate world, and I'm proud of what you've achieved. But in your pursuit of visible success, you've forgotten something important. True worth isn't measured by what others can see. Rachel understood this from the beginning. While you were climbing corporate ladders, she was building foundations, not just in real estate, but in the lives of her students. She proved that you don't have to choose between doing good and doing well. The Victorian mansion you both loved as children, Rachel bought it 3 years ago. She's been restoring it carefully, preserving its history while quietly making it a home. Emma, all those times you mocked her salary, she could have bought your Manhattan penthouse 10 times over. But Rachel chose to keep her success quiet, understanding that sometimes the best power is the power others don't know you have. The portfolio she's built isn't just impressive, it's transformative. She's revitalized our downtown, created affordable housing, and supported local businesses, all while teaching the next generation. It's time for both of you to see each other clearly. Emma, your sister isn't just a teacher, she's one of the most successful business owners in the state. And Rachel, your sister isn't just a corporate climber. She has valuable skills that could complement yours if you both let go of old patterns. My greatest hope is that this revelation brings you closer, not further apart. Success comes in many forms, and family is the greatest success of all. Love, Mom. Silence filled the office as Mr. Peterson finished reading. Emma's hands were shaking as she set down her phone. My portfolio app still displaying numbers that dwarfed her own net worth. The library, she said finally, her voice small. Yesterday at the funeral, I talked about tearing out the library, but you'd already restored it, hadn't you? I nodded. Mom helped me find period-appropriate fixtures. It was our last project together. Emma's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup. I've been so horrible to you. All these years, looking down on you, pitying you, and you were building an empire right under my nose. An empire isn't worth much without family to share it with, I said softly. Mom taught me that. What happened next surprised us both. Emma started laughing. Real laughter, not her practiced corporate chuckle. My little sister, the secret real estate mogul. All those times I tried to explain investment strategies to you. While I was calculating cap rates in my head, I finished starting to laugh too. We spent the next few hours going through Mom's papers, discovering more about how she helped shape my business while keeping Emma's corporate drive balanced. She'd been preparing for this moment for years, laying the groundwork for us to finally see each other clearly. In the end, Emma didn't move to the Victorian mansion. Instead, she asked to invest in Morgan Educational Properties, bringing her corporate expertise to help expand our impact. We restored Mom's favorite room, the library, as a community learning space, hosting free financial literacy classes for local students. These days, Emma still works in corporate finance, but she's different. She teaches evening classes at my school sometimes, showing students how to navigate the business world without losing themselves. And me? I still drive my Honda to school every day, still grade papers until late at night. But now Emma knows that the Just a Teacher is also her business partner, her sister, and maybe finally her friend. The Victorian mansion on Maple Drive stands as a testament to our journey. From the outside, it looks like a beautifully restored piece of history. But inside, in the library Mom helped design, two sisters meet every Sunday to discuss business strategy, share teaching stories, and remember that sometimes the quietest success stories are the most meaningful ones. Last week, a student asked me the secret to success. I thought about Mom's letter, about Emma's transformation, about the power of quiet achievement. Success, I told them, isn't about what you have or what others see. It's about staying true to yourself while building something meaningful, even if no one else knows you're building it. Emma, sitting in on my class that day, actually clapped. Hi, I'm Emily Chen, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the deepest betrayals come wrapped in family loyalty. 10 years ago, I built Meditech Solutions from my garage into a $100 million healthcare technology company. But I never imagined that saving my sister-in-law's life would lead to losing everything I built, or so my brother thought. I still remember the day it all began, 5 years ago. I was in my office, reviewing quarterly reports when my brother Marcus burst in, tears streaming down his face. His wife, Sarah, was dying. Her kidneys were failing, and she needed a transplant urgently. Without hesitation, I got tested. We were a match. You don't have to do this, Mom said, her voice trembling. The surgery, the recovery. What about your company? But I had already made up my mind. Sarah was family, and family comes first. That's what I believed back then. The irony of that belief still makes me laugh bitterly today. The surgery was successful. I gave Sarah my kidney, and she got a second chance at life. The recovery was harder than I expected. For 3 months, I worked from my hospital bed, then from home, managing Meditech through video calls and late-night emails. Marcus visited often, bringing flowers and gratitude. You saved our family, he would say, his eyes filled with what I thought was genuine appreciation. I'll never forget this. He didn't forget, but not in the way I expected. As I recovered, Marcus started showing more interest in Meditech. He'd stop by my office, asking questions about operations, finances, board members. I thought he was just being supportive, trying to help while I regained my strength. Sarah even started working in our HR department, my idea, a way to keep her close and give her purpose during her recovery. The company continued to grow. Our healthcare management software was being adopted by major hospitals across the country. We were innovating, expanding, thriving. But with success came complications I never saw coming. Marcus began attending board meetings as my advisor. He had an MBA from Harvard and a background in corporate finance. Let me help you, he'd say. You need to rest more after the surgery. Doctor's orders. Gradually, subtly, things began to change. Meetings would be scheduled when I was at medical checkups. Important decisions would be made in casual conversations over drinks. Drinks I couldn't have due to my post-donation dietary restrictions. Marcus became the face of Meditech at industry events, while I was focusing on my health. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The sympathetic looks from my executive assistant. The way Sarah would avoid eye contact in the hallways. Then came the company's 10th anniversary celebration. I had planned a small gathering, but Marcus turned it into a major event at the city's most expensive hotel. We need to show our strength to the investors, he insisted. I spent weeks preparing my founder's speech, excited to share our vision for the future. The ballroom was packed with employees, investors, and industry leaders. I sat at the main table, flanked by our board members, watching Marcus approach the podium for what I thought would be a brief introduction. 10 years ago, he began, his voice carrying across the silent room. My sister started this company with a dream. Today, Meditech stands as a testament to innovation in healthcare technology. I smiled, waiting for him to continue. But then his tone changed. However, times change, and so must leadership. Since my sister's kidney donation, her health has become increasingly fragile. Her frequent medical appointments and physical limitations have begun to impact the company's operations. My heart stopped. The room began to spin. This couldn't be happening. The board and I have discussed this at length, Marcus continued, not even looking in my direction. It's time for Meditech to enter a new era of leadership, one that isn't compromised by health issues and outdated management styles. I looked at the board members, people I had personally chosen, mentored, trusted. They were all nodding, some even smiling encouragingly at Marcus. Emily, he turned to me now, his voice dripping with fake concern. You're too weak to lead now. It's time to step down. Let those of us with the strength and vision take Meditech into the future. The room erupted in murmurs. I sat there, frozen, as Marcus continued his character assassination disguised as concerned brotherhood. Sarah sat beside him, head bowed, wearing the designer watch I had given her as a recovery gift. After all, Marcus's voice cut through my thoughts. What kind of sister would risk the livelihoods of hundreds of employees because of her pride? Haven't I always looked out for you, Em? Let me take care of everything, just like you took care of Sarah. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. The room fell silent, hundreds of eyes on me. They expected tears, perhaps a scene. Instead, I walked to the podium, placed my prepared speech on it, and said quietly, "Congratulations, Marcus. I hope you know what you're doing." Then I walked out, head held high, leaving behind the whispers and stares. In my car, I finally let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My hand brushed against my surgery scar, a permanent reminder of what I had given and what I had lost. But Marcus had forgotten something crucial, something that would turn his moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of his life. As I drove home, a small smile played on my lips. Tomorrow would be very interesting indeed. After all, I hadn't spent 10 years building a healthcare technology empire without learning a thing or two about protecting what's mine. Marcus was about to learn that sometimes the people you underestimate are the ones you should fear the most. I pulled into my driveway, already formulating my plan. My phone was buzzing with concerned messages from employees, investors, and board members. I ignored them all and went straight to my home office. Opening my laptop, I began typing. By dawn, everything would be ready. Marcus thought he had won. But he had no idea what was coming. Sometimes the quietest revenge is the most satisfying. The next morning would bring changes that none of them saw coming. Changes that would make them realize exactly how weak I really was. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. I arrived at the office at 6 a.m., well before anyone else would arrive. As I walked through the quiet halls of Meditech's headquarters, I couldn't help but smile at the security cameras tracking my movement. After all, I had personally overseen the installation of every single one. At precisely 9 a.m., Marcus strode through the front doors, Sarah trailing behind him. Both wore expressions of triumph that were about to be wiped clean off their faces. Emily? Marcus's voice held a mix of surprise and annoyance. What are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home and rest. Oh, I'm feeling quite strong today, I replied, motioning them into the main conference room. In fact, I've never felt better. We should probably discuss the company's future. There's nothing to discuss, Marcus snapped, pulling out his phone. I'm calling security. I wouldn't do that if I were you, I interrupted, pulling out my tablet. You see, while you were busy planning your little coup, I was busy too. Tell me, Marcus, did you actually read the company's founding documents, or were you too focused on practicing your speech? The first hints of uncertainty crept into his expression. What are you talking about? I projected a document onto the conference room's main screen. Let's start with ownership structure. When I founded Meditech, I created a dual-class share system. The publicly traded shares that you and the board have been so focused on. They're Class B shares. Voting rights, yes, but limited control. Sarah's perfectly manicured hands gripped the back of a chair as I continued. The Class A shares, which hold supermajority control, they're held by a private trust, my private trust, one that specifically states that medical conditions cannot be used as grounds for leadership removal. Marcus's face paled. That's impossible. The board can vote however they like. I cut him off. It doesn't change the fact that I control 70% of the company's voting power. But that's just the beginning. I pulled up another document. Remember that healthcare management software that generates 80% of our revenue? The one you've been taking credit for in those lovely interviews? It's not actually owned by Meditech. It's licensed through my personal holding company, MTech Innovations. You can't do this, Marcus whispered, his confidence crumbling. I already have, I replied, pulling up my email. Last night, I sent notices to all our major clients. You see, their contracts include a key person clause. Me, if I'm forcibly removed from leadership, they have the right to terminate their contracts without penalty. I showed them my inbox, filled with responses. Would you like to know how many have already indicated they'll exercise that right? Or should we discuss the fact that our top developers and research team are actually employed through MTech, not Meditech? Sarah finally spoke, her voice trembling. Emily, please, think about what you're doing. Think about the family. Family? I stood up, lifting my blouse slightly to show my surgery scar. Like how you thought about family when you sat there silently last night. When you watched your husband try to steal the company I built while using my kidney donation as a weapon. The room fell silent. Through the glass walls, we could see employees gathering, whispers spreading as they checked their emails. Marcus frantically scrolled through his phone, no doubt seeing the company's stock price beginning to plummet as news spread. You have two options, I continued calmly. Option 1. I walk away with my intellectual property, my key employees, and my major clients. Meditech becomes an empty shell, and you can explain to the board and shareholders why the company's value dropped to zero overnight. And option 2, Marcus asked weakly. You and Sarah resign, immediately. You surrender your shares at current market value, which, I should mention, is dropping by the minute. You sign ironclad non-compete agreements and you move far, far away from here. In return, I don't pursue legal action for corporate espionage and attempted hostile takeover. You wouldn't dare, Marcus sputtered. We're family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Funny how family only matters when you need something from me. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, I start making phone calls to the SEC about some interesting financial movements I've noticed in company accounts since you started attending board meetings. The next hour was a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and barely contained chaos. By noon, I sat alone in my office, looking out over the city. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from board members suddenly remembering their loyalty, industry leaders expressing support, and employees pledging their commitment. Mom called that evening, crying. Did it have to end this way? She asked. They gave me no choice, I replied softly. They tried to use my sacrifice against me. They forgot that giving away a kidney didn't mean giving away my spine. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Marcus and Sarah moved to California, their dreams of corporate takeover shattered. The board members who had supported them resigned quietly, replaced by people who understood the true meaning of loyalty. Meditech not only survived but thrived. Within a year, our market value had doubled. Our healthcare management software expanded internationally, helping millions of patients. The irony wasn't lost on me. The company they thought was weakened by my medical condition was revolutionizing healthcare technology. Sometimes late at night, I trace the scar on my side and think about family, loyalty, and betrayal. I don't regret donating my kidney. Sarah's life was worth saving regardless of what came after. But I learned that true strength isn't measured by physical health or corporate titles. It's measured by the quiet power of being underestimated and proving everyone wrong. These days, when I attend industry events, I often hear whispers. That's Emily Chen, the one woe. They never finish the sentence, but they don't have to. My success speaks for itself. Last week, I received an invitation to give a keynote speech at a healthcare technology conference. The topic? Resilience and leadership, finding strength in adversity. I accepted with a smile, already planning my speech. After all, I have quite a story to tell. Marcus sent an email recently, the first contact in 2 years. A rambling apology talking about regret and family bonds. I haven't replied. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. Mom still hopes for reconciliation. Family is family, she says. But I've learned that true family isn't defined by blood or shared history. It's defined by respect, loyalty, and understanding that strength comes in many forms. As I write this from my office, watching the sunset over the city skyline, I think about the journey that brought me here. The surgery scar has faded, but the lessons remain. Never underestimate the quiet ones, never mistake kindness for weakness, and never ever try to steal from someone who gave you their kidney. Meditech continues to grow, but more importantly, I found peace with my decisions. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others, it's about rising so high that they can't help but see their own mistakes reflected in your success. I keep a small photo on my desk from the day I left the hospital after the kidney donation. Marcus and Sarah are there, smiling, promising eternal gratitude. I keep it not as a reminder of betrayal, but as a reminder that our greatest strengths often come from the very things others try to use against us. In the end, they thought my sacrifice made me weak. Instead, it showed me just how strong I really was. Hi, I'm Nathan Chen, and this is the story of how my sister's attempt to push me out of our family's company became her biggest professional mistake. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch out for the most. Chen Technologies have been our family's legacy for 30 years. My father, David Chen, built it from scratch in our garage, turning his brilliant ideas into a tech empire. Growing up, my sister Amanda and I spent countless hours in that garage, watching him work his magic with circuits and code. But while Amanda inherited Dad's charisma and business savvy, I took after his innovative spirit. She excelled at presentations and networking. I thrived in the lab, working on new ideas and solutions. We were supposed to be the perfect team. Her business acumen and my technical expertise carrying our father's legacy forward. That was the plan anyway. Everything changed when Dad had his stroke. He survived, but the doctors advised him to step back from day-to-day operations. The board needed to appoint a new CEO, and everyone assumed it would be a joint leadership between Amanda and me. I still remember the emergency board meeting like it was yesterday. The mahogany conference room was packed with board members, all waiting to hear the succession plan. Amanda sat at the head of the table, immaculate in her designer suit, while I sat quietly in my usual spot, still wearing my lab coat. "Gentlemen," Amanda began, her voice confident and clear, "we need strong, unified leadership to take Chen Technologies into the future. Someone who understands not just the technology, but the business landscape. Someone who can be the face of our company." I should have seen it coming. While my brother Nathan is competent in the lab, she continued, leadership requires more than technical skills. It requires vision, presence, and the ability to inspire confidence in our shareholders. One by one, she brought up my perceived failures, the presentations I fumbled, the investor meetings I'd skipped to work on prototypes, my lack of executive presence. She painted a picture of me as a brilliant but socially awkward scientist who couldn't possibly lead a major corporation. The board members nodded along. They'd always been more comfortable with Amanda's polished corporate style than my hands-on approach. Therefore, she concluded, I proposed that I assume the role of CEO, with Nathan transitioning to a pure research position, no management responsibilities. The vote was unanimous in her favor. But Amanda wasn't done. Over the next 6 months, she systematically dismantled my authority within the company. My research budget was cut. My team was reassigned. Every proposal I submitted was rejected or indefinitely delayed. "It's just business, little brother," she'd say, not even looking up from her phone. "We need to focus on marketable products, not your pet projects." The final straw came during our annual Innovation Summit. I've been working on a revolutionary new chip design, something that could put us years ahead of our competitors. When I tried to present it, Amanda shut me down in front of everyone. "Nathan," she sighed dramatically, "some people just aren't cut out for this level of business. Maybe it's time you explored opportunities elsewhere." The room fell silent. Even our father, attending his first company event since his stroke, looked away in discomfort. The next morning, Amanda called me to her office. "I've prepared a resignation agreement," she said, sliding a document across her desk. "Very generous severance package. You can keep working on your little inventions at home." "And if I refuse?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Then I'll have to take more direct action. The board has already approved a restructuring plan that would eliminate your position. This way, you get to leave with dignity." I signed the papers without argument. Amanda looked almost disappointed. She'd clearly been expecting a fight. Always the quiet one, she mused. That's your problem, Nathan. You never learn to stand up for yourself. I left her office without a word, stopping by the lab one last time to collect my personal items. As I packed up my notebooks, my phone buzzed with a message from our patent attorney, Maria. Everything is registered and confirmed. They haven't noticed. I smiled slightly. Amanda had been so busy grabbing power, she'd forgotten to check one crucial detail: who actually owned the intellectual property rights to our most important innovations. You see, while Amanda was playing corporate politics, I'd been quietly protecting our father's legacy and my own work. Every major patent from the past 5 years had been registered under my personal holding company, with Dad's full knowledge and approval. The company had been operating under a licensing agreement that expired upon any change in my employment status. And in 3 weeks, Chen Technologies was scheduled to launch their biggest product line ever, all based on technology I owned. I took one last look around the lab where I'd spent so many late nights. On my way out, I passed the company's mission statement mounted in the lobby: innovation through integrity. Dad's favorite phrase. Don't worry, Dad, I whispered. Let's see how innovative Amanda can be now. The day of Chen Technologies' big product launch arrived with all the fanfare Amanda loved. She'd rented out the city's most prestigious convention center, invited every tech journalist in the country, and even hired celebrities to attend. The company's stock was at an all-time high in anticipation of the announcement. I watched the live stream from my home office, surrounded by the patents that were about to change everything. Right on schedule, Amanda took the stage to thunderous applause. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, radiant in the spotlight. Today, Chen Technologies will revolutionize the industry with our quantum processing architecture. That's when my lawyer sent the cease and desist letters to the company, the board members, and every major media outlet covering the event. The reaction was almost instantaneous. I watched Amanda's face freeze mid-sentence as an aide rushed onto the stage and whispered in her ear. The confident smile vanished from her face. I will be taking a brief recess, she stammered. Technical difficulties. My phone started ringing immediately. Amanda's name flashed on the screen, followed by messages from board members and our father. I ignored them all. Instead, I sent one text to Maria: proceed with phase 2. Within hours, Chen Technologies' stock started plummeting as news broke that they didn't own the rights to their flagship technology. Emergency board meetings were called. The launch was indefinitely postponed. Amanda's perfectly orchestrated triumph had turned into a nightmare. Finally, I answered my phone. What did you do? Amanda screamed. Do you have any idea what you've just done to our company? Our company? I replied calmly. I thought you made it clear it wasn't mine anymore. I'm just protecting my intellectual property. What are you talking about? Check the patent office records, sister dear. Every major innovation Chen Technologies plan to announce today. They're all registered to my holding company, NC Innovations. The company's been operating under a licensing agreement that terminated the moment I was forced to resign. The silence on the other end was deafening. That's impossible, she whispered. Dad would never. Dad knew exactly what I was doing, I cut in. He learned long ago not to underestimate the quiet one in the room. While you were busy playing CEO, I was protecting our family's real legacy, the innovation that built this company. The next few days were chaos. Chen Technologies' stock dropped 60% as investors panicked. Amanda tried to claim the patents belonged to the company, but Maria had bulletproof documentation proving otherwise. Every invention, every innovation I developed over the past 5 years was legally mine. The board called an emergency meeting. This time, I attended in person, sitting quietly at the far end of the table while Amanda tried to explain how she'd lost control of the company's core intellectual property. We have 2 options, I finally spoke up. 1. I take my patents and start my own company, leaving Chen Technologies with nothing but an empty shell and obsolete technology. You wouldn't dare, Amanda hissed. It would kill Dad to see his company destroyed. Option 2, I continued as if she hadn't spoken. We restructure. I return as co-CEO with full control over R&D and product development. Amanda handles sales and marketing, what she's actually good at. Equal partnership, just like Dad always wanted. The board voted immediately. Amanda had no choice but to agree. Dad came to see me that evening. He looked older, tired, but his eyes were clear. You knew, I said. You knew she would try to push me out. He nodded slowly. Amanda's like me when I was younger, ambitious, aggressive. But she forgot what really built this company. He picked up one of my old notebooks. It wasn't fancy presentations or stock prices. It was this, the innovation, the dedication to creating something new. The restructuring took time, but eventually, Chen Technologies emerged stronger than ever. Amanda and I learned to work together, each focusing on our strengths. She still handles the spotlight, but now she makes sure to give credit where it's due. Last month, we had a family dinner, the first one since everything happened. As we sat in Dad's dining room, Amanda raised her glass. To my little brother, she said, her voice sincere for once, who taught me that true power isn't always about who shouts the loudest. I nodded, accepting the olive branch. To family, I replied, and to remembering what really matters. Dad smiled, looking at his children finally working together as he'd always hoped. Yesterday, a young intern asked me why I didn't just take my patents and start my own company. Show Amanda what real failure felt like. I showed him the old family photo we still keep in the lobby, taken in front of Dad's garage where it all began. Because some things are worth more than revenge, I told him. Sometimes the biggest victory isn't in destroying what others built, but in showing them a better way to build together. Chen Technologies celebrates its 35th anniversary next month. Amanda and I will give the keynote speech together, her handling the business vision, me explaining the technology. Dad will be in the front row, watching his legacy continue through both his children. And that garage where it all started, we've turned it into an innovation lab for young engineers. On the wall, there's a new sign next to Dad's old workbench. Success isn't just about being the loudest in the room. Sometimes it's about being the wisest. The crystal vase shattered against the wall inches from my head, sending shards cascading across the marble floor of our mansion's grand foyer. My 18th birthday cake lay untouched on the dining room table behind me, its candles still smoking. You ungrateful brat. Diana, my stepmom of 6 years, screamed. How dare you say you want to study art instead of business? After everything we've done for you. I stood my ground, though my hands were shaking. Grandma always supported my art. She said, your grandmother is dead. Diana spat. And thank God for that. She was the only one filling your head with these ridiculous dreams. This family runs Bolton Industries, not some pathetic art gallery. My father stood in the corner, swirling his whiskey, saying nothing. He hadn't said much of anything since marrying Diana, really. Not since Grandma Rose passed away 2 years ago. The father who used to sneak into my room to look at my drawings was gone, replaced by the silent shadow of a man. Dad, I pleaded. Please, you know this is what I've always wanted. He took another sip of whiskey, avoiding my eyes. Diana stepped closer, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor. Your father agrees with me. You're 18 now, Emma. Time to grow up and join the real world. Either you accept your place in the company, or what? Her perfectly painted lips curved into a cruel smile. Or you can leave. Right now. Take your sketches and your childish dreams and get out of my house. This isn't your house, I said quietly. This was Grandma Rose's house. Wrong. Diana laughed. Your father inherited everything when that old witch died. And since I'm his wife, this is my house now. So what's it going to be, Emma? Business school or the streets? I looked at my father one last time, searching for any sign of the man who used to defend me, who used to say I could be anything I wanted. He drained his glass and turned away. With trembling fingers, I pulled out the acceptance letter I'd received that morning from the Florence Academy of Art, my dream school. The one Grandma Rose had always said I should attend. I held it up, then slowly tore it in half. Diana's triumphant smile froze as I started walking toward the grand staircase. Where do you think you're going? To pack my bag, I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. I choose the streets. You're bluffing, Diana scoffed. You've never worked a day in your life. You won't last a week out there. 20 minutes later, I stood at our mansion's ornate front doors with nothing but a backpack containing some clothes, my sketchbooks, and the small wooden box Grandma Rose had given me before she died, making me promise not to open it until I really needed it. I guess you really are as stupid as your grandmother, Diana sneered, watching me from the doorway. don't come crawling back when reality hits. As the heavy doors slammed behind me, I heard my father's voice for the first time that evening. Diana, maybe we should. Shut up, Charles. I knew what I was doing when I married you. That brat was the last thing standing between us and everything your mother left. Good riddance. I walked down the long driveway, past the manicured gardens Grandma Rose had loved so much. At the gates, I turned back one last time to look at Bolton Manor, the only home I ever known. In my bag, the wooden box seemed to grow heavier. What I didn't know then was that Grandma Rose had left me far more than just a box of memories, and in exactly 2 years, Diana would learn just how much her perfect plan was about to backfire. The first 6 months were exactly as hard as Diana had predicted. I couch surfed between friends' homes until their parents started asking questions. I worked 3 jobs: barista in the morning, waitress during lunch, and night clerk at a small hotel. My hands were always shaking from exhaustion, making it hard to draw anymore. One rainy night, sitting in my tiny rented room above a laundromat, I finally opened Grandma Rose's box. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid, expecting to find old photos or maybe some of her jewelry. Instead, I found a letter and a small golden key. My dearest Emma, the letter began in Grandma's elegant handwriting. If you're reading this, then things have happened exactly as I feared they would. Diana never fooled me. I saw right through her the moment your father brought her home. A woman who measures life in dollar signs will never understand the value of a dream. I wiped away tears as I continued reading. But I made preparations, my darling girl. The key enclosed opened safety deposit box number 247 at First Metropolitan Bank. Everything you need is there. And Emma, remember what I always told you. Sometimes life's greatest masterpieces take time to reveal themselves. All my love, Grandma Rose. The next morning, I walked into First Metropolitan Bank clutching the golden key. The bank manager's eyes widened when he saw it. Ms. Bolton, we've been expecting you for quite some time. Inside the safety deposit box, I found another letter, this one from Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Callahan. Along with it were dozens of legal documents, property deeds, and stock certificates. My hands shook as I read Mr. Callahan's letter. Apparently, Grandma Rose had been far cleverer than anyone knew. While everyone thought she'd left everything to my father, she'd actually transferred most of her assets into a secret trust in my name years before her death. A trust that would mature on my 20th birthday. The mansion, the grounds, controlling shares in Bolton Industries, even her personal art collection worth millions. All of it would legally become mine in 18 months. Your grandmother was quite explicit, Mr. Callahan explained when I met him later that day. She saw how Diana was influencing your father and wanted to protect both you and the family legacy. The trust is ironclad. Does my father know about this? No one does. That was the point. Your grandmother wanted you to have time to find your own path without Diana's interference. Speaking of which, he pulled out another envelope. This was meant to be delivered today specifically. Inside was a paid tuition letter to the Florence Academy of Art, along with a living stipend and apartment arrangements in Italy, all handled through the trust. Your grandmother believed in your dreams, Ms. Bolton, Mr. Callahan smiled. She just wanted to make sure you had the chance to pursue them on your own terms. That night, I booked a flight to Florence. As my plane took off, I thought about Diana and my father, still living in what they thought was their mansion, still thinking they had won. They had no idea that in 18 months, everything would change. I spent the next year and a half in Florence, studying art, finding my voice, and growing stronger. I learned about business too. Grandma's trust manager taught me everything I needed to know about running Bolton Industries. I was no longer the scared teenager Diana had thrown out. Then, 1 week before my 20th birthday, I received an email from Mr. Callahan. The papers are ready, Ms. Bolton. Shall we proceed with the eviction notice? For the first time in 2 years, I smiled thinking about Diana's perfect marble foyer. Yes, I replied, it's time to go home. I stood in front of Bolton Manor on the morning of my 20th birthday, feeling like a completely different person than the scared girl who'd left 2 years ago. My hair was shorter now, my posture straighter. The charcoal on my fingers was from choice, not service work, and my clothes were chosen with careful purpose, a tailored black suit that screamed quiet power. Mr. Callahan stood beside me, briefcase in hand. The eviction notice was delivered yesterday, They should be expecting someone. Though not you. Right on cue, the mansion's front door burst open. Diana stormed out, designer heels clicking furiously on the marble steps, waving a stack of papers. This is ridiculous. Some trust can't just. She stopped dead when she saw me. All color drained from her face. You. Hello, Diana. My voice was calm, steady. Like what I've done with my hair? You're behind this? She looked at the papers in her hand, then back at me. This is impossible. Charles inherited everything. Actually, Mr. Callahan stepped forward. Mrs. Bolton only allowed you to believe that. The majority of the estate was placed in a trust for Ms. Emma years ago. A trust that matured today. Charles? Diana screamed toward the house. Charlie is out here. My father appeared in the doorway, looking older than I remembered. When he saw me, he froze. Emma? Hello, Dad. He stumbled down the steps, staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. You look so much like your grandmother. Shut up about that old witch, Diana snapped. Call our lawyers, she can't do this. Actually, I pulled out my own stack of papers, I can. The mansion, the grounds, controlling shares in Bolton Industries. Grandma Rose left them all to me, and my first act as majority shareholder was to audit the company books. I smiled coldly at Diana. Interesting reading, especially the part about personal expenses being charged to company accounts. The board was very interested in that report. Diana's face went from white to green. My father swayed on his feet. You have until tomorrow to vacate the premises, Mr. Callahan stated professionally. The company security team will arrive at 9 a.m. to escort you out and supervise the removal of your personal belongings. Only your personal belongings, he emphasized, looking at Diana. The art collection stays. You can't do this, Diana whispered, but her voice had lost its steel. We're your family. Family? I laughed softly. Family doesn't throw a teenager out on the streets. Family doesn't watch silently while their child is abused. You taught me exactly what family isn't, Diana. Consider it the last lesson you'll ever give me. I turned to my father, who hadn't said a word. Dad, do you have anything to say? He looked at me, then at Diana, then back at me. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the father I used to know. But then he turned away, just like he had 2 years ago. That's what I thought. I nodded to Mr. Callahan. Make sure they only take what's truly theirs. And Diana? I called as I turned to leave. The crystal vase you threw at me. The one that almost hit my head. I expect to find that replaced. As I walked back to my car, Diana's angry screams echoed across the grounds. But they didn't frighten me anymore. I had one more stop to make. Grandma Rose's grave, where I planned to leave her favorite roses and show her my latest sketches. After all, she was the one who taught me that the greatest art often comes from pain, and the greatest revenge is lived well. 1 year later, I stood in the newly renovated east wing of Bolton Manor, now transformed into the Rose Bolton Art Gallery. The space was filled with light from the floor to ceiling windows, illuminating dozens of paintings, some from Grandma's collection, others created by emerging artists I'd discovered during my time in Florence, and a few of my own pieces. The opening gala was in full swing. Board members mingled with art critics, while students from the new Bolton Arts Fellowship program, funded by the company's profits, showcased their work. Grandma Rose would have loved it all. Ms. Bolton, my assistant Sarah, appeared at my elbow. Your father is here. I turned to see him standing awkwardly by the entrance, looking older and smaller than I remembered, but sober. After the eviction, Diana had filed for divorce once she realized there was no money left to squeeze out of him. Last I heard, she was trying to sink her claws into another wealthy widower in Palm Beach. Let him in, I said softly. He walked through the gallery slowly, stopping in front of each painting. Finally, he reached the centerpiece, my latest work, a portrait of Grandma Rose in her garden, surrounded by her beloved roses. You captured her perfectly, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Emma, I don't. I held up my hand. If you're here to apologize, save it. 2 years of silence can't be fixed with a simple sorry. I know, he nodded. I don't deserve forgiveness. But your mother, your grandmother, she always said you had her heart. Her ability to see beauty even in broken things. He pulled something from his jacket, a creased, worn piece of paper. I kept this, from when you were 6. It was one of my earliest drawings, a messy crayon sketch of him and me in Grandma's garden. He'd written "My Little Artist" across the top. I was a coward, he continued. I let Diana poison everything good in my life because I was afraid of being alone. But you're so much stronger than I ever was. I looked at the drawing, remembering the father who used to proudly display my art on his office wall, before Diana threw it all away. The fellowship program, I said finally. We need someone to mentor the business students, teaching them how to balance creativity with commerce. The position is yours if you want it, part-time only, and you'll report to the board, not to me. His eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Emma. Don't thank me yet. You'll have to earn back trust, mine and the company's. It won't be easy. I understand. As he walked away, I turned back to Grandma's portrait. The gallery lights caught the gold nameplate beneath it. Rose Bolton, the woman who taught me to paint my own future. Mr. Callahan appeared beside me, smiling. Your grandmother would be proud, not just of the gallery, but of how you've turned the company around. Profits are up 40% since you took over. Because I remembered what she always said, business, like art, is about seeing the full picture. Speaking of which, I handed him a document. The paperwork for the Rose Bolton Arts Foundation. I want to establish scholarships for young artists who need support. Like a certain young woman once did. I smiled, touching my crystal necklace, made from the shards of that vase Diana had thrown, now transformed into something beautiful. Exactly. Sometimes the most broken pieces make the most beautiful art. Later that night, after the guests had left, I sat in Grandma's garden with my sketchbook. The roses she planted were blooming again, their scent filling the air. In the distance, lights glowed warmly in the gallery windows, while my father's office light burned late as he worked on the fellowship program. On my lap lay a new letter, ready to be sealed in a safety deposit box of my own. Dear future artist, it began. Sometimes life's greatest masterpieces take time to reveal themselves. After all, that's what Grandma Rose had taught me. That true legacy isn't just about what we inherit, but what we choose to pass on. Hi, I'm Emma Chen, and this is the story of how I turned my mother's small neighborhood bakery into a multi-million-dollar empire twice. But more importantly, it's about how sometimes the sweetest revenge comes with a sprinkle of karma and a whole lot of buttercream. Our story begins in my mother's tiny bakery, Sweet Dreams, tucked away in a modest corner of San Francisco's Richmond district. Mom had started it 30 years ago, arriving from Hong Kong with nothing but her recipes and a dream. I grew up in that bakery, the scent of fresh bread and vanilla permanently etched in my memories. My sister Grace, 3 years older and infinitely more sophisticated, always saw the bakery as an embarrassment. Why can't Mom run a real business? She complained while attending her prestigious business school. Our friends' parents owned tech companies and law firms and were stuck with a tiny bakery. But where Grace saw shame, I saw magic. Every morning at 4 a.m., I'd help Mom prepare the day's goods. Through high school and college, I stayed, learning every recipe, every technique, every secret that made our pastries special. Even after graduating with my business degree, I chose to stay. Emma, you're wasting your potential, Grace would say during her rare visits, always dressed in designer suits that seemed out of place among our flour-dusted counters. With your degree, you could work in finance like me. But I had different plans. While Grace climbed a corporate ladder at Goldman Sachs, I was quietly transforming our little bakery. First came the website, then social media. I modernized our ordering system and introduced new flavors that blended Mom's traditional recipes with contemporary tastes. The turning point came 5 years ago when a food blogger discovered our green tea croissants. Suddenly, lines were forming around the block. Local tech companies started ordering our corporate breakfast packages. Hotels requested our pastries for their high-end brunches. Mom was overwhelmed but proud. Emma, she'd say, her eyes tearing up, you've made my little dreams so big. In 3 years, we expanded from one small shop to 5 locations across the Bay Area. Our revenue grew from $200,000 a year to over $10 million. We were featured in food magazines, won local business awards, and even had celebrities dropping by when they were in town. That's when Grace suddenly became interested in a family business again. Emmy, she called one evening. She only used that nickname when she wanted something. You've done an amazing job with Mom's little shop. But don't you think it's time to bring in some professional management? I should have seen it coming. Grace had always been the smart one, the one who knew better, the one who had to control everything. But I was too busy managing our expansion to see the signs. Then came Mom's cancer diagnosis. It hit us all hard, but while I spent my days running between the bakery and hospital, Grace was making plans. She convinced Mom that the stress of owning a business wasn't good for her health. "Let me handle everything," she told Mom. "You just focus on getting better." I was in New York, meeting with potential investors for our East Coast expansion, when I received the text that would change everything. Sold the bakery for $2 million. Good deal, right? Time to end your little hobby and get a real job. Grace. My hands shook as I called Mom, who was recovering at home. "Is it true?" I asked. "Grace said it was for the best," Mom replied weakly. "She said you were working too hard." I booked the first flight home, my mind racing. But Grace had timed everything perfectly. By the time I landed in San Francisco, the papers were signed, and our family legacy had been sold to a corporate restaurant group. But what Grace didn't know was that during those years of playing baker, I learned more than just how to make the perfect croissant. I built relationships with every supplier, every client, and every food critic in the city. And most importantly, I kept one crucial secret that would turn her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. As I stood outside our former bakery, watching the workers take down the Sweet Dreams sign, a small smile played on my lips. Grace thought she'd ended my little hobby, but she was about to learn that she'd actually given me the push I needed to do something much, much bigger. The next morning, I sat in my apartment surrounded by business plans and recipe books. Grace's text messages kept coming. "Emmy, don't be dramatic. $2 million is a great deal for a bakery. You should thank me. Now you can get a real career. The corporate group will keep some of the recipes. You can still visit." I smiled as I ignored each message, focusing instead on my laptop. What Grace didn't know, what no one knew except Mom and me, was that our most popular recipes weren't actually part of the bakery's assets. They were my personal intellectual property, registered under my name 3 years ago when we first started expanding. The green tea croissants that made us famous, my recipe. The black sesame soufflé that had food critics raving, mine. The celebrity favorite red bean brioche, all mine. "Time to make some calls," I muttered, picking up my phone. First call, James Chen, no relation. The real estate developer who'd been begging us to open a location in his luxury shopping complex. "James, remember that space you offered us? Is it still available?" "Emma, yes, absolutely. When can you come see it?" "How about now?" The space was perfect, twice the size of our original bakery and most importantly, right next door to where the corporate group was planning to reopen our old bakery. The rent was astronomical, but I just smiled as I signed the lease. Next call, Diana Wong, food critic for the San Francisco Chronicle, who'd become a close friend over the years. "Diana, remember how you always said I should do a high-end patisserie? Well, I'm finally taking your advice. About time. Need help spreading the word? Just wait 2 months. I'll let you know when." Final call. Marcus John, our former head pastry chef who'd been offered a management position by the corporate group. "Marcus, how would you like to be executive chef and partner in a new venture?" His response was immediate. "When do we start?" Over the next 6 weeks, while Grace was busy bragging to her finance friends about her brilliant business deal, I was quietly building something new. Our old suppliers, hearing what had happened, offered extended credit terms. Our former staff, loyal to the recipes they'd helped perfect, left the corporate group one by one to join us. The construction crews worked day and night. The space transformed from an empty shell into a sophisticated patisserie with marble counters, crystal chandeliers, and a glass-walled kitchen where customers could watch our pastry chefs at work. I named it Maison de Rêves, House of Dreams, a tribute to Mom's original dream, but elevated to a whole new level. 2 days before our scheduled opening, Grace finally discovered what I was up to. She stormed into the construction site, her Louboutins clicking angrily on the marble floors. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, waving her phone with its news alerts about the upcoming opening of San Francisco's most anticipated new patisserie. "You can't just open another bakery. We had a deal." I looked up from where I was arranging fresh flowers on the counter. "No, Grace, you had a deal. I never signed anything. And technically, This isn't just another bakery, it's a luxury patisserie. But the recipes, they belong to Sweet Dreams now. That's when I pulled out the intellectual property registrations. Actually, they don't. These recipes are mine. Always have been. The color drained from Grace's face as she read the documents. This is impossible. The corporate group, they're planning to reopen next week. I smiled, arranging another lily in its vase. Yes, I know. Right next door. Should be interesting to see how they do with what did their press release call them? Inspired interpretations of our classic recipes. Grace's hands started shaking. Do you know how much I had to negotiate to get that $2 million? My reputation is on the line. Funny, I replied, stepping back to admire the flower arrangement. You didn't seem too concerned about my reputation when you sold Mom's legacy without consulting me. And that's when the first food delivery truck arrived, carrying the ingredients for our grand opening. But what happened next would make Grace realize that selling the bakery wasn't just a bad business decision. It was about to become the most expensive mistake of her life. Opening day dawned bright and clear. I arrived at 3 a.m., just like old times, but this time stepped into a state-of-the-art kitchen that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Marcus and the team were already there, preparing our signature items with practiced precision. At 6 a.m., Grace stopped by again, this time with her corporate group associates. Through our glass walls, we could see them huddled in the old bakery space next door, pointing at our pre-opening line that already stretched around the block. Those are our customers, one executive hissed at Grace. You said the recipes came with the sale. Grace's face was a mix of anger and panic as she stormed into our shop. This is ridiculous. You can't just steal our customers. I looked up from where I was arranging a display of our signature green tea croissants. They're not your customers, Grace. They're here because they want our recipes, the ones I created. By the way, how's your opening going? She glanced back at their empty store. The corporate group had advertised Sweet Dreams' famous pastries, but without our recipes, they were just selling generic baked goods at premium prices. You planned this, she accused. You knew they'd pay $2 million thinking they were getting the recipes. I smiled, adjusting a perfectly glazed fruit tart. I didn't plan anything. You're the one who sold a bakery without checking what actually came with the sale. At 7 a.m., we opened our doors. The first customer in line was none other than Dehana Wong from the Chronicle, accompanied by a photographer. Behind her were food bloggers, local celebrities, and loyal customers from our old bakery. By noon, we'd sold out of everything. Our sales for the first day, $50,000. Next door, the corporate group's Sweet Dreams sat nearly empty, their display cases full of untouched pastries. That evening, Diana's review went live. Maison de Reves isn't just a patisserie, it's a phoenix rising from the ashes of the beloved Sweet Dreams bakery. Emma Chen has taken her mother's legacy and elevated it to an art form. The famous green tea croissants, better than ever. The black sesame soufflé, worth the 30-minute wait. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. The corporate group is threatening to sue me. They say I misrepresented the sale. I could lose my job over this. I was about to reply when Mom walked in, looking healthier than she had in months. She took in the elegant space, the happy customers, the proud staff. "Aya, Emma," she said, tears in her eyes. "You really did it. You made my little dream into something so beautiful." That's when I revealed the final part of my plan, one that would either heal our family or break it apart forever. Stepping into my new office, a far cry from the flower-dusted corner desk at Sweet Dreams, I pulled out the documents I'd been preparing for weeks. "Mom," I said softly, "I want to show you something." I laid out the papers detailing the new company structure of Maison de Reves. The business is set up as a family trust. You own 30%, I own 40%, and I pause. There's a 30% share reserved for Grace. Mom's eyes widened. But after what she did, family is family, I said, echoing what Mom had always taught us. Besides, he's about to need it. Right on cue, Grace burst into the office, her designer suit wrinkled and her eyes red. "The corporate group is suing for $5 million, she blurted out. "They're saying I committed fraud. Goldman is putting me on administrative leave pending investigation." I gestured for her to sit down. "I know, their lawyers contacted me this morning." "You know." Grace collapsed into a chair. "Why aren't you gloating? This is what you wanted, isn't it? Your revenge?" I pulled out another set of documents. Actually, I have a proposal for them. Maison de Reeves will buy back Sweet Dreams at a fair market value of $1 million. They cut their losses, drop the lawsuit against you, and we get the family name back. But why would you help me after what I did? I walked to the window, looking out at the lines still forming outside our store. Because this was never about revenge, Grace. It was about preserving Mom's legacy, our family's legacy. Turning back, I showed her the trust documents. You're welcome to your share of Maison de Reeves, but there are conditions. First, you work here, starting from the bottom like I did. Learn the business, respect the craft. Second, no more secret deals or corporate takeovers. We make decisions as a family. Grace stared at the papers, then at Mom, who was quietly wiping tears from her eyes. I don't know anything about baking. I smiled. Neither did I when I started. But Mom taught me, and now I'll teach you, if you want to learn. Over the next year, something remarkable happened. Grace traded her designer suits for chef's whites, arriving at 4 a.m. to learn our recipes. She struggled at first, burning batches of croissants and over whipping cream. But slowly she began to understand what I had known all along, that our little bakery was never just about making money. Maison de Reeves expanded to 10 locations across California. Our revenue hit $20 million in the first year. The corporate group gladly accepted our buyback offer, and Sweet Dreams returned to family ownership, transformed into our line of premium grocery products. Mom's health improved as she watched her daughters finally working together. She still comes by every morning, offering tips and tasting new creations. Last week, Grace developed her first original recipe, a rose lychee macaron that sold out in hours. The pride in her eyes reminded me of how I felt when I first started innovating with Mom's recipes. I was wrong, she admitted one evening as we closed up. This isn't just a bakery. It's our heritage, our story. Today, Maison de Reeves is more successful than either of us imagined possible. But more importantly, we've rebuilt something far more precious than a business empire. We've rebuilt our family. As I write this from our flagship store, watching Grace teach a new apprentice the perfect way to fold croissant dough, I'm reminded of Mom's words. Success is sweetest when shared with family. The display cases are full of pastries that blend tradition with innovation, just like our family, preserving the best of our past while building something new. And every morning, when I smell the fresh bread and vanilla, I'm that little girl again, standing beside Mom in our tiny bakery, living out her sweet dreams. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing someone a better way forward. And sometimes the most valuable family recipe isn't the one that makes the perfect croissant. It's the one that teaches us how to rise above our mistakes and become better together. The fluorescent lights hummed quietly in my small electronics repair shop as I carefully disassembled another broken iPhone. My brother Michael's words from last night's family dinner still rang in my ears. Still playing with broken phones, David, while I'm busy running a billion-dollar tech company? I wiped the sweat from my forehead and continued working. The tiny workshop at the back of my shop held more secrets than my entire family could imagine. Between fixing cracked screens and replacing batteries, I'd spent the last 5 years developing something revolutionary. Mr. Chen, Sarah, my only employee, poked her head through the door. Your brother's secretary is on the line. Something about attending a mandatory family event? I sighed, already knowing what this was about. Michael's company, Next Tech Solutions, had just hit $2 billion in valuation, and he was throwing a lavish party to celebrate. Our parents would be there, along with Silicon Valley's elite. Of course, he wanted his failure of a brother to attend. I was his favorite cautionary tale. Tell her I'll be there, I replied, turning back to my work. Under the bright desk lamp, I made the final adjustments to my prototype. 5 years of research, countless sleepless nights, and my entire life savings had led to this moment. The quantum processing chip I developed in this humble workshop could revolutionize mobile computing forever. But my family didn't know that. To them, I was just the disappointment, the MIT dropout who wasted his potential running a repair shop while Michael built his empire with his Stanford MBA and wealthy connections. The party was exactly as pretentious as I expected. Michael's new corporate headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown skyscraper. Men in designer suits and women dripping in jewelry filled the space, all laughing at my brother's jokes as if he were a comedy genius. David. My mother's voice carried across the room. There you are. Couldn't you have dressed more appropriately? She eyed my simple black shirt and slacks with disappointment. I came straight from work, Mom. Ah, yes, the shop. She said, shop the way most people might say garbage dump. You know, Michael's company is always hiring, even in entry-level positions. Mom, please. David. Michael's booming voice interrupted us. My brother approached, champagne in hand, surrounded by his usual entourage of yes men. So glad you could leave your little phone hospital to join us. The group around him chuckled. Michael had always known how to work a crowd, how to make himself look better by putting others down. Some things never changed since high school. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael raised his glass, his voice carrying across the room. I'd like to make a toast. 10 years ago, I had a vision to create the most innovative tech company in the world. While others doubted, while others chose easier paths, he looked pointedly at me. I persevered. The crowd murmured appreciatively. I saw our father beaming with pride. Speaking of easier paths, Michael continued, his smile turning cruel. My brother David here repairs phones for a living. Can you imagine? An MIT-educated Chen fixing cracked screens in a tiny shop while his brother builds an empire. The laughter that followed made my chest tight. I guess not everyone has what it takes to succeed in the real tech world. I could have left then. Part of me wanted to, but I stayed, remembering what was waiting in my workshop. Let them laugh. They had no idea what was coming. Actually, Michael, I spoke up, my voice steady. How's your quantum computing division doing? I heard your last 3 attempts at developing a mobile quantum processor failed spectacularly. Michael's smile faltered slightly. It was his company's biggest weakness. They'd spent hundreds of millions trying to crack quantum mobile computing with nothing to show for it. We're making excellent progress, he recovered quickly. Unlike some people who waste time with trivial repairs, we're pushing the boundaries of technology. If he only knew. In my pocket, I carried a thumb drive with the complete patents for my quantum processor. Tomorrow, I had meetings scheduled with representatives from Apple, Google, and Samsung. The bidding would start at $5 billion. But tonight, I just smiled and let them laugh. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong immediately. It's about waiting for the perfect moment to show them just how wrong they've been all along. As I drove home that night, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. The prototype test results are in. It works perfectly. All parameters exceeded expectations. I smiled, thinking about tomorrow's meetings. Michael had no idea that while he was building his empire on conventional technology, his failure of a brother had cracked the holy grail of quantum computing in a tiny workshop. The best part? I'd done it without wealthy investors, without a fancy MBA, and without stepping on others to get ahead. I'd built something revolutionary with nothing but determination, intelligence, and the very skills my family mocked me for. Understanding technology from the ground up, fixing things others thought were broken. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, I have phones to fix. Because unlike my brother, I'd never forgotten the value of honest work, no matter how small others might think it is. The morning of my meetings dawned bright and clear. I arrived at my shop early, just like any other day. A line of customers had already formed, people with broken phones, tablets, and laptops who trusted me to fix their precious devices. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. Today, these same devices would run on my quantum processor technology, making them thousands of times faster and more efficient. You seem cheerful, Sarah remarked, organizing the day's repair tickets. She was the only person who knew everything. My former MIT classmate who'd believed in my vision enough to work at a small repair shop while we developed the technology. Big day, I replied simply, heading to the workshop. The prototype was secured in a custom-built case, along with backup drives containing all the technical documentation. 5 years of work, ready to change the world. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Hope you're not too hurt by last night. Truth hurts, little brother. But someone had to say it. Maybe now you'll finally grow up and get a real job. I left it unanswered. Let him gloat a little longer. The first meeting was with Apple at 10 a.m., held in a prestigious downtown law firm's conference room. I walked in wearing the same simple clothes I always did, no power suits needed when you hold the future of computing in your hands. Mr. Chen, the Apple executive began, slightly confused by my appearance, we've reviewed your initial documentation. Frankly, it seems too good to be true. You're claiming to have developed what our entire R&D department with billions in funding couldn't achieve. I placed the prototype on the table. Would you like a demonstration? What followed was 3 hours of intense testing and validation. By the end, the room had filled with more executives, all watching in amazement as my quantum processor performed calculations that would take traditional computers years to complete. This is revolutionary, the chief engineer whispered, reviewing the test results. The implications for AI, encryption, mobile computing. This changes everything. The Google representatives arrived at 2 p.m., followed by Samsung at 4 p.m. Each meeting followed the same pattern. Initial skepticism, followed by stunned silence, ending with barely contained excitement. By 6 p.m., my phone was exploding with messages. Initial offers had started coming in. Apple, $6 billion. Google, $7 billion. Samsung, $6.5 billion. I was packing up when Sarah called. David, you need to see this. Your brother's here. I rushed back to the shop. Michael stood in the middle of the store, face red with anger, waving his phone. What the hell is this? He demanded, showing me an email from one of his board members. Why are Apple and Google representatives telling everyone they found the next big thing in quantum computing? From a repair shop owner? The customers in the store watched with interest as the famous CEO confronted the humble repair shop owner. If they only knew. Hello, Michael, I said calmly. Busy day? Cut the crap, David. What did you do? What did you show them? Would you like a demonstration, brother? I led him to my workshop, enjoying the way his eyes widened at the sophisticated equipment hidden behind the simple repair bench. What is all this? I pulled out the prototype. This, dear brother, is what you and your company have been trying to build for years. A functional quantum processor small enough to fit in a mobile phone, powerful enough to revolutionize computing as we know it. That's impossible. You're lying. But I could see the fear in his eyes as I powered up the device. You're just a repair guy. No, Michael. I'm an engineer who chose to understand technology from the ground up while you were busy playing CEO. Every broken phone, every failed device taught me something. While you were hosting parties and making speeches, I was solving the quantum coherence problems your teams couldn't crack. The color drained from his face as I demonstrated the processor's capabilities. The bidding starts at $5 billion, I added casually. Your company's entire market value, though I hear the offers have already gone higher. You can't do this to me, he whispered. To the family, Nextech's entire future depends on quantum computing. Without it, we're just another tech company with outdated products. I'm not doing anything to you, Michael. I'm just showing the world what a failure of a brother can achieve. His phone buzzed continuously, board members, investors, all wanting to know how they'd missed this, how they'd let a revolutionary technology develop right under their noses in a small repair shop. We can work something out, Michael said, his arrogance replaced by desperation. A partnership. Nextech can acquire your technology. We're family after all. I thought about all the family dinners where he'd mocked me, all the times he belittled my work, all the years our parents had compared us. Family? I laughed softly. Last night, you called me pathetic in front of hundreds of people. You've spent years telling everyone who would listen that I'm a failure. Why would I partner with someone who never believed in me? But what am I supposed to do? Our stock will tank when this news gets out. I suggest you start learning how to fix things, Michael, because your company is about to need some serious repairs. He left my shop a broken man, his perfect world crumbling around him. As the door closed behind him, Sarah emerged from the back room. That was intense, she said. Are you okay? I looked around my shop, at the devices waiting to be fixed, at the workshop where I'd built something revolutionary, at the simple life that had given me everything I needed to succeed. Never better, I replied, picking up a broken iPhone. Now let's get back to work. These phones won't fix themselves. But my phone kept buzzing with increasing offers from tech giants, and I knew that tomorrow, the world would learn that sometimes the biggest innovations come from the smallest places, And that success isn't about fancy offices and expensive suits. It's about passion, dedication, and the willingness to build something great, one repair at a time. The next morning, my small shop became the center of a media storm. Unknown repair shop owner revolutionizes computing screamed the headlines. Business reporters crowded outside, trying to get a glimpse of the genius inventor who'd outsmarted Silicon Valley's biggest players. I kept the shop open despite Sarah's protests. David, there are reporters everywhere, she argued. Plus, we've had calls from every major news network. Shouldn't we focus on that? Mrs. Parker's daughter's birthday photos are on this broken tablet, I replied, carefully working on the damaged device. That's just as important to her as quantum computing is to Apple. The bell above the door chimed. I looked up, expecting another reporter, but instead found my parents standing there. Mom's eyes were red from crying, and Dad looked like he aged 10 years overnight. David, Mom started, wringing her hands. Why didn't you tell us? All these years. Would you have believed me? I asked quietly, continuing my repair work. Every time I tried to explain my research, you changed the subject to Michael's latest achievement. We thought we were helping, Dad said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Pushing you to be more like your brother. More successful, you mean? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice, because running a repair shop wasn't successful enough. Before they could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from one of Apple's executives. They were raising their offer to $10 billion, with a guarantee that I would retain control of the technology's development. $10 billion, Mom whispered, reading over my shoulder. Our David, a billionaire. I was worth just as much yesterday, I said, when you thought I was just fixing phones. The door chimed again. This time it was Michael, looking disheveled and desperate. Nextech's stock has dropped 60% since the market opened, he announced without preamble. Our investors are pulling out. The board is calling for my resignation. Michael, not now, Mom pleaded, but he ignored her. The technology blogs are having a field day, he continued. Nextech CEO's brother solves quantum computing in repair shop. Do you have any idea what this is doing to my reputation? I carefully closed up the tablet I'd been repairing, making sure every screw was perfectly in place. Your reputation, I repeated slowly. Last night, you humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. Last week, you told our cousins' kids not to be like Uncle David unless they wanted to be losers. Last month, you forgot to invite me to Dad's birthday party because you were embarrassed by my job. I was wrong, okay? Michael exploded. Is that what you want to hear? I was wrong, and you were right. You're the genius, and I'm the fraud. Happy now? No, Michael, I'm not happy. Because you're only saying this now that you know I'm worth billions. If I failed, if my research hadn't paid off, you'd still be mocking me at parties. Sarah appeared with a stack of papers. David, the patent lawyers are here. And Google just raised their offer to $11 billion. Michael's face turned ashen. $11 billion? David, please, think about the family. Think about Nextech. We could work together, merge our companies. Sir, Sarah interrupted. There's a line of customers waiting, and Mrs. Parker needs her tablet back by noon for her daughter's birthday. I looked at my family, Mom crying silently, Dad looking lost, Michael practically begging. Then at the line of regular people waiting for their devices to be fixed. People who trusted me with their precious photos. Their important documents, their daily communications. Sarah's right, I said, standing up. We have work to do. Real work, helping real people. Mom, Dad, I'll call you later. Michael, I suggest you focus on saving what's left of your company instead of trying to take over mine. But what about the reporters? The offers? The interviews? Mom stuttered. I picked up the next broken phone from the repair crew. They can wait. This gentleman needs his phone fixed so he can call his daughter overseas tonight. That matters more than any interview. You're choosing to fix phones over dealing with billion-dollar offers. Michael asked incredulously. No, I'm choosing to remember who I am and what matters. The quantum processor didn't come from endless board meetings and PowerPoint presentations. It came from understanding how things work, from fixing what's broken, from caring about the small details everyone else ignores. I turned to Sarah. Tell the patent lawyers I'll meet them after closing time. And let Mrs. Parker know her tablet will be ready in 20 minutes. As my family left the shop, I could hear the reporters outside buzzing with questions. But inside it was peaceful, just the familiar smell of electronics, the precise tools laid out on my workbench, and the satisfaction of fixing things that others had given up on. My phone buzzed again. Now Samsung had raised their offer to $12 billion. But I kept working on the broken phone in front of me, smiling as I remembered something my first electronics teacher had told me. Success isn't about how much money you make, it's about staying true to what you love, no matter what anyone else thinks. The quantum processor would change the world, yes. But here, in my small repair shop, I was already changing worlds, one fixed device at a time. 1 month later, my life had transformed in ways I never imagined. The deal with Apple had closed at $15 billion, making headlines worldwide. Repair shop revolution. How one man's vision changed computing forever. But what happened next surprised everyone, especially my family. I kept the shop open. I don't understand, Michael said during one of his increasingly frequent visits. He'd been forced to step down as CEO of Next Tech, the company's value plummeting without its quantum computing prospects. You're worth billions now. Why are you still here fixing phones? I was working on a particularly challenging repair, an old laptop containing a grandmother's only photos of her late husband. Because this matters, I replied, carefully extracting the damaged hard drive. Every device here tells a story, holds someone's memories, connects people to the ones they love. The quantum processor development was proceeding at Apple's research facilities, with me overseeing the project. But I'd made an unusual demand in the contract negotiations. I wanted to keep my repair shop running with enough time to work there regularly. The most brilliant mind in quantum computing, the Apple CEO had said, and all he wants is to keep fixing phones. But I knew something they didn't, something my brother, with all his business degrees, had never understood. True innovation doesn't come from boardrooms and PowerPoint presentations. It comes from understanding how things work at their most basic level, from caring enough to fix what's broken. David, Sarah called from the front, your parents are here again. They've been coming by more often lately, watching me work with a mixture of pride and confusion. Today, Mom carried a small box. We've been cleaning out the attic, she said, placing it on my workbench. We found these. Inside were my childhood projects, broken radios I'd repaired, circuit boards I'd built, notebooks filled with designs and ideas, things they'd once dismissed as pointless tinkering. You used to spend hours up there, Dad said softly, fixing things we thought were worthless. We should have seen it then. The genius wasn't in following Michael's path. It was in being true to yourself. The bell chimed again. A young girl entered, clutching a broken tablet. Can you fix it? She asked timidly. My science fair project is on it, and the competition is tomorrow. Of course, I smiled, gesturing her forward. Let's take a look. As I examined the tablet, I noticed my family watching. For the first time, they seemed to really see what I was doing, not just fixing the device, but helping someone, solving a problem, making a difference. You know, Michael said suddenly, I never actually knew how any of our products worked. I just knew how to sell them. That was always the difference between us, I replied, carefully opening the tablet. You saw technology as a way to make money. I saw it as a way to help people. Working on the tablet, I explained each step to the young girl, just as I'd always done with customers. Her eyes lit up with understanding. You're him, aren't you? She asked excitedly. The quantum computer guy from the news. My teacher showed us the articles. Yes, but right now I'm just the repair guy trying to save your science project. Both are equally important, Sarah added, making the girl smile. Later that evening, after fixing the tablet and watching the girl leave clutching it joyfully, I made an announcement to my family. I'm starting a foundation, I said. The Chen Innovation Fund. We'll be opening repair shops like this one all over the country, teaching young people how to fix and understand technology. Each shop will also be a research lab, encouraging innovation from the ground up. But that's not how tech companies work, Michael protested weakly. Maybe that's why they keep missing the real innovations, I replied. Because they've forgotten that every great invention starts with understanding the basics, with being willing to fix what's broken. Mom was crying again, but differently this time. You're going to help other children like you, she whispered. The ones who think differently. The ones who might change the world. I nodded. if someone just gives them the chance I gave myself. 6 months later, the first Chen Innovation Centers opened. They looked like simple repair shops from the outside, but inside they were incubators for the next generation of inventors and problem solvers. Michael, humbled by his fall and inspired by what he'd seen, asked to help manage the educational programs. "I think I finally understand," he said one day, watching a young girl take apart a phone with the same intensity I once had. Success isn't about the money or the status. It's about making a difference, no matter how small it seems. The quantum processor eventually revolutionized computing, yes. But my real legacy became something else. Hundreds of repair shops turned innovation centers, thousands of young minds encouraged to think differently, to fix things, to solve problems. And me? I still spend most days at my original shop, fixing devices and teaching others to do the same. The quantum processor made me a billionaire, but this simple repair shop made me who I am. It taught me that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the smallest places, and that true success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about staying true to what's right. "Mr. Chen, another customer enters with a broken device. Can you help fix this?" I smile, reaching for my tools. Of course. Let's see what we can do. Because in the end, that's what it's all about, fixing what's broken, helping where you can, and building something better, one small repair at a time.